lot of the money that she had made from working when she and my dad were together and with Carol, you know, and it's like, of course, if you're seeing on paper how much money Carol's telling you that you're making,
right,
you're like, great, take more.
Sure, let's
take more
down.
of my money because I want my kids to have a certain future.
Yeah.
And it's paying off. It's working. What
Yeah,
you
right.
said is true, Carol. It is. We're making more money with our
exactly.
money.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So, and like, I never hear anything about it really until 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Like there hadn't been any major problems that I had heard of until 2 years ago. And that's kind of when the Ponzi scheme started to unravel.
Okay. So what was the first symptom or what was happening?
Sure. So the first time that I was aware that anything was going on was 2 years ago when Bubby said, I haven't gotten my money from Carol. And so what that means is that Carol would deposit like a lump sum into my grandma's account so that she could help pay for like bills.
Mm-hmm. And she's a caretaker. Again, she's 99.
Yeah. She
She
has around the clock care. Mm-hmm. She goes to the doctors when she needs it, but also just to go gossip.
Yeah.
So it's like,
she loves
it all adds up.
She loves a friend.
Yeah, exactly. Her house is like from the 60s, so it's constantly needing repairs, you know, just like
grandma stuff.
Yeah. So I think a month goes by where she's like, I haven't gotten this money. Like, I'm okay. Luckily she has her own savings that she can touch. That's not like, she's not waiting on Carol. So that happens for 1 month and we're like, okay, well, hopefully Carol will figure it out in the next
weird
month.
Glitch or something. Yeah.
It'll be there because I guess as Bubby's telling me this, she says, well, it happened another time, but Carol figured it out.
Okay.
So we're like, okay.
So your faith is still in Carol. Like,
yes.
okay, but it was fine. So
yeah,
cool.
Right.
Some glitch. Yeah.
So we're like, great, it'll be there next month. The next month comes around, there's no money. And not only that, but my grandma cannot get a hold of Carol anymore. So it's like at first Bubby's calling Carol going, hey, my money's not there. You know, is everything okay? I just want to make sure. And Carol's going, yes, don't worry. It'll be there next month. It'll be there next month. And then Carol goes off the map, like cannot get a hold of her. Bubby's trying to call her. My mom's trying to call her. Bubby calls Carol's mother because it's like at this point, Bubby's like,
I will
is
call your
something
mother.
wrong? Yeah.
But also, it's like, is she dead?
Yes,
like, we've
right.
never had this happen before.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, Bubby's first instinct is like, Carol's sick or something's really wrong or, you know, I don't know what's going on. So Carol falls off the map for a while and Bubby's still like, there's no money here. So she's starting to dip into her, like, you know, whatever savings that she has, which again, I don't know what my grandma's or my mom's like savings looked like. I just know that they had money with Carol that was supposedly several accounts that were like inheritance,
right?
Personal
House.
savings.
Yeah.
Right. And then at some point,
and at this point, were you suspicious at all, or were you just kind of like, oh, that's weird, that's happening in the background, like, what's up with that?
It was weird.
Yeah.
It was definitely weird, but I don't think it was until like the whisperings of Carol's being sued because she's running a Ponzi scheme or because some people wanted their money back from her and she could not give it to them. That's kind of when things kicked in of like, oh, fuck.
Oh,
what's going on?
Yeah. So where did those words, like, what was the first word on that might be? So she calls her mom and her mom doesn't know what's happening?
Yeah.
What does her mom say?
I mean, her mom is like, I don't even remember what her mom says. I don't know that her mom covers for her, but I think she's just like, no, Carol's fine. She just needs time. She'll get back to you soon.
Going through something or whatever.
Yeah. And Carol's boyfriend, I don't know what he is to her, but is saying the same. Like, Carol's fine, but she just needs some time and she'll get back to you. So everyone's kind of covering for her.
People covering for her.
Yeah.
That's shady as fuck.
Yeah. So what we hear is that, let me double back because I feel like this is getting confusing. So what Carol did is she has this pool of money that she is quote unquote investing. And I asked my mom about this once when I was like 22 because I just didn't get it. I've, again,
you're like, how can that be possible?
Yeah, like what is investing? I don't know how it works. And I remember asking my mom and my mom kind of explained it, but also didn't understand it. So what was going on is that Carol was taking people's money, investments that they thought they were like, great, I'm going to give these to Carol. She's going to go invest in, low risk bonds. And then I'm going to make money off those. So what had happened was different people who were part of this like quote unquote client pool said, okay, I'm ready to withdraw my funds.
And they weren't there.
And they weren't there. And then they sued her.
Because in a Ponzi scheme, new people's money was paying old people's funds.
Right.
Yeah.
So at that point...
But at a certain point, it all catches up, and then there are people who are left holding nothing.
Yeah, because
exactly.
when one person wants to take it out, now the whole domino falls.
Right.
Or starts.
Right. Yeah, sorry if I should have explained a Ponzi
No,
scheme
it's okay.
No,
People
no,
we
no.
assume, but yeah.
Yeah.
Good. So that's what she had been doing.
Right. So, but then when we hear that, we're like, oh, these people, they own 2 McDonald's franchises. Like, they're just wealthy and they're mad and...
They're just being petty.
They're just being petty. Yeah. I mean, that's what you want to think, because when you lay it all out, it's like, here's a person who we've known for 30 years, who has been delivering on, you know, these financial needs that we have, that my grandma has, that my mom has. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's some major problem with these people who all we know about them is that they own franchises.
Yeah. And there's been no symptoms up to this point. So you're like, why would I?
Right.
You're just like, okay, yeah.
Right. So at that point, Carol goes, I can't get you any more money right now, but you will be okay.
What does that
That's
mean?
just straight up what she tells them?
Yeah. To Bubby and my mom.
She tells them. Okay.
On the phone or in person? Do you know?
Ooh, I don't remember.
Yeah, probably on the phone, but
yeah.
Is like, hey, okay.
But I mean, in the meantime, Bubby's calling Carol at least once a week, if not daily.
Yeah.
My mom's emailing her like, what's going on? Yeah. What do I need to do?
And how many months in is this of like no money?
Probably like 6 to 8 months.
Okay, so that's a time.
Do you know how long it was that Carol was off the map and dodging their calls and emails?
2 to 3 months.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that's why it felt, when someone like that drops off the map, you're like, okay, this is serious.
Right.
But then for her to come back and go, you'll be okay, because you want to believe,
of course,
I'll be okay.
Yeah.
You listen to it.
Yeah.
But also, it's like, how could we believe you? You just ignored us for 3 months.
Yeah. But it's like, seems like something's weird because she's never done this before. So you're
Right.
like, maybe something's happened. Like, you know,
right.
Just the plot, like, of where your mind is.
Or
at
she
the
has
time.
done this before. You're just discovering this, and this is who she is.
Right.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
All
to
of it.
you specifically. Yeah.
To
Yeah.
you, yeah.
I think at some point, I don't know where this is in the timeline, but at some point my mom drove past her house and said that the windows were like cardboarded up and the doorbell was like kicked off or something. Oh. So I think somebody else got mad enough that they went and tried to confront her.
I'm sure multiple people went.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, yeah, I need to do something.
Just dodge. Yeah. So she's like, you guys are going to be okay. And they're like, what the fuck? Okay.
Well, yeah, at that point, you're just like, all right, my grandma has like, I think she has a hold of like my and my sister's and my mom's inheritance that she like set aside. That's not with Carol, thank God. And that's just what she's been living off of.
So she was like, okay, yeah.
And then around that time where Carol's like, you'll be okay, my grandma falls and breaks her hip. And that was like, okay, very stressful. Yeah, exactly. Really stressful. It was like, A, are you going to die? Because at this point, she's 98 years old getting a hip replacement. You know, it's like, that shouldn't happen.
Right.
Living shouldn't happen. But she does.
Yeah.
And Carol comes to the hospital to see her. Yeah. And we're standing in the room with Carol.
Oh my God.
And she's sitting there with Bubby going, you'll be okay. You know, I'm so glad that you're out of surgery. I'm so glad you're okay. You'll be home soon enough.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And it was just so weird because it's like, okay, here's this person who my grandma and my mom have trusted with their lives, their livelihood, who fell off the map for a couple months, who we don't really know what's going on, who cannot talk to my mom or my grandma about when they will start receiving, you know, money to like pay their rent, pay their bills again. Just sitting, you know, bedside with my grandma. Oh my God. Yeah.
And did not address it to Bubby or you or your mother?
Was
No,
probably
not
like,
in the room.
This is about Bubby right
Yeah,
now. Because
exactly.
We're just happy she's alive.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Like making it all about, and Bubby's like, "Where's my money?" Legit.
If only I don't.
You see this hip? It costs money.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, so what was mostly stressful about Bubby breaking her hip is that it was then like, okay, well now we need to get you home and we need to have professional care come in because it can't just be her caretakers who are like, I'm here to make you breakfast and help you get dressed. You know, it's like we need to get you on a rotation of pain management pills, physical therapy, like, you know, so it it just was this really hefty finance that was about to be incurred, that just everything looked like a mountain. And it, you know, Bubby has that mentality of like, let me put tape on my glasses before I get new ones. So it felt really hard to be like, okay, we're going to get people to come in, you know, hourly who can stay with you 24 hours a day, but that costs $26 an hour.
Yeah.
And there is no, you know, like insurance doesn't cover that.
Sure.
Or if they did, you'd have to prove that you had a certain level of income, which we don't know what Bubby's level of income is right now. So yeah, that was really stressful, but I'm very thankful that my mom just said, we're just going to put it on a credit card and we'll figure it out later. Like, we just need to help, you know, get her stable again. So
Carol's there.
Yeah.
Are
you glaring mad dog at Carol, or can you not even look at her?
I'm more mad dogging her, but I'm also confused.
Because you're like you're like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, I think really what it's confusing because who do you believe? Right? Like this person who I've heard whispers about, who is part of a client pool. Like my mom doesn't know anyone else who's in this client pool of hers. We don't know other people, so we can't be like, hey, what have you heard?
Yeah.
It's just my mom and my grandma going back and forth to each other of, do you think she would do this to us? Do you think she would do this to us? No, she wouldn't. And when something like that that's so unbelievable happens, you go into denial.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same with like literally anything in your life where you're like, I can't believe this is happening. You're just like, well, then I won't believe it's happening.
Yeah. They've known her for 30 plus years. And so it's like trying to accept something that your sister or your daughter did something this awful to you. And you're like, no, that can't be.
Yeah.
I'm going to rule out every other possible thing and exhaust that first before I admit, oh, they did do it.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So from there,
yeah,
she's in the room with Bubby, and then what's the next?
The next is like, we don't really hear from her. The next is like, there is a lawsuit being filed against Carol. And
is it a class action or directly from your family?
Class action.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at this time, is the FBI involved?
Yes.
So then you hear.
So then we hear like, okay, the FBI is getting involved. This is real.
Yeah.
But and yet still in so much denial because like for me, again, I don't know the numbers, right? Like my mom would always say something like, you'll be okay. Like once I pass, you'll be fine. You know, like don't worry about it. But I think now at this point, it's like, it's just totally different. So I can't imagine being at my mom's age, having worked as hard as I worked, at Bubby's age, worked as hard as she worked with my grandpa, who like, you know, like Holocaust survivor, came to America, like did, you know, the rags to middle class journey, to have it all taken from you and to be, you know, it's like my mom especially, she's like, I can't start over, you know, and she doesn't, you know, she has a profession. It's the entertainment industry, which is so unstable. You know, it's like she's a freelancer. Yeah. So imagine starting over at her age being a freelancer. It just is impossible.
Right.
And it makes me feel awful. And I think that me, luckily, I'm young. You know, I have my own chance to make my own money, which I always have. You know, there was never part of me that was like, well, I'm just going to fuck off and
trust fund kid. Yeah.
Trust fund kid. Yeah. Because A, I didn't have access to it, the money. B, never knew how much it was and was like, not, you know, I'm not here to like rely on that. Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah. And that's the way to probably do it for most trust fund kids is like, you don't give them access to all that money until like a certain point.
Yeah. Right.
And it really,
you know,
it's just common people's inheritance. That's just how it works.
Right.
For sure.
So I think that's really, I didn't want it to be real for my mom because I could sense the fear. I mean, it really, really has destroyed her in this way that like I can't imagine.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, she's going through a level of betrayal that's like, I don't know if I would almost say this is actually worse than getting like, I don't know, like you're, I don't know.
It's awful. It's awful. It's your friend of 30 years,
Yeah.
literally stealing all of your money, all of your mother's
it's an emotional
money.
and financial devastation.
I was trying to search for a word more than betrayal, but like
devastation.
That's,
Yeah.
I just couldn't find one. But yeah.
Yeah. So it's so right. Anyway, getting back to the the timeline of it all is we hear that the FBI is involved. So at this point, my mom is still trying to talk to Carol to be like, what's going to happen? Like, what do I need to do? What's happening? Can you tell me what's going on? I'm freaked out. And is still trying to be like, are we team Carol? Do we believe that these people are just being greedy? Are they crazy? Are they vindictive? Or did Carol fuck up?
Yeah.
And I think my mom just gets so frustrated because she's not like getting an answer. She doesn't feel better because this lawsuit, as it's under investigation, I think my mom can see the timeline of it and understands that it's not going to be done in 6 months. You know, it's not going to be done in a year.
This is big. Yeah.
It's big. So there's a receiver as part of the case who's kind of collecting data from all the clients who were in the client pool to understand how much money they put in, what they got back, where did it go, what are Carol's records. There's like a good month and a half where Carol doesn't hand over a thumb drive with her records on it or her invoice statements or, whatever it is. The books.
Yeah.
So it's like there's, delay. And meanwhile, like, there's nothing for us to do. It's like you are, I don't know what the word is that I want.
You're living in limbo because you're like, is all everything we ever worked for gone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're hoping it's not.
And there's nothing.
At the end of, because also it's like, this is such a big investigation. Although this big thing was like the accounts are frozen or whatever, right? So nobody can access anything. So like, you're like, maybe I'll get a cut at the end when they figure it out. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's all happening. And as my mom's trying to get information from anyone.
Right.
And she's talking to this receiver and he's saying like, there's nothing left. And that's just, I think it's just, it's too hard to hear.
Yeah.
But it's that balancing act of like, okay, well, we have to prepare for the worst, but also I hope not.
Please don't tell me that's the real answer. Yeah.
Yeah. So finally a date gets set for her arraignment.
Has she been, so she's not been arrested at this point?
No.
Okay.
They're like the data receiver is like building the case. The FBI is building the case.
Got it.
For
They
her.
need more to arrest her.
And then to know what to charge her for.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Right. So then she is charged, and then there's a court date set for, let's see. So now we're in 2019.
This year.
Yeah.
And I'm very surprised she didn't cut and run. She didn't like go to Britain or something?
No, I know.
Or to Cancun.
She went, well, we do know that she went somewhere for a month, right? Like we know that she fell off the map for a month in that initially when this all started.
Right.
We don't know where she went.
But she didn't just stay out of the country.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, there's still ways to get you back.
Yeah,
like
sure.
the FBI
They'll
does
know.
do that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a whole year. So all of 2018 is just.
That was all the case. And this, I just knew this through you because we would talk about it all the time of like what is happening, and you were like, we don't know anything because it's still being built. Basically.
All of 2018 was being in limbo and saying, I don't know. My poor mother, freaking out, rightfully so.
And how was Bubby responding to this? Was she just like also in disbelief, or was she getting mad? Like, what's happening?
I think it oscillated. I don't think Bubby let me really see how upset she was because that's just not in her nature.
She didn't want you to worry. Too.
Yeah. But I know that she feels very betrayed and really upset. But at the same time, still, she's like, I'll talk to her and she's like, I can't believe Carol did what she did, but what am I going to do? Sit here and cry about it?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, yeah, maybe for 10 minutes or something. Like,
you're allowed to.
Yeah, you totally can. But
so in this period of limbo, how do you perceive it has begun to affect your family, specifically your mom and your grandma, in terms of the money not being accessible?
Really hard. It's that thing where like we all know that moment where you look at your bank account and you're like, okay, I have $20 left until my next paycheck.
Okay.
It felt like that, but for my 98-year-old grandma who was like finally signing up for Medi-Cal, thank God, but like it was just not that my grandma had this drastic lifestyle change. But she did have to sign up for like, some social services. And I think that really hurt her
pride,
her pride. Yeah. And I'm just laughing, because she's such a Republican. Which, you know, I'm very happy that I'm very happy that those resources are there for her, and I think that she is too. But yeah, I think it's really hard to have your like social status be changed for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Where it's like so out of your control. And when you're
economic status, we should say.
Sorry. Economic status is what I meant.
But that is interesting because if your mom works in entertainment, economic status does parlay into how you are seen socially.
Yeah,
you know
totally.
what I mean?
Yeah, it's all about identity too,
right.
and also it's like you worked hard and you had this shit. So
it got to the point where my grandma would be like, well, I don't know if I can buy a soda for the gal who's taking care of me today at Del Taco because she, when you're stressed about money, it flares up around interesting things that you would not expect.
It's little little things are a huge deal. Yeah.
Totally.
Oh my God. No, that's so true. Once I was on a tour, it's not at all the same gravity. But once I was on like a DIY tour with a few comedians that we both know, and I had like such a little amount of money left in my bank account, and I still had like of the half of the other leg of the tour, like the whole like Northwest area. And we were like, I think like in like Southern Oregon or like Northern California. And I was like paying for something with my debit, and it was like for a big bottle of water. And I was like, okay, it's like one of those gallons. And I was like, okay, this is actually good because then I won't need to like buy any drinks or anything like that. I'm going to buy this. And I was paying with my debit. And then like this comedian, quote unquote, friend comes up and puts all this shit like snacks and drinks and stuff and says, oh, can you just put it on your card and I'll like Venmo you or whatever. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
And I was like, and he was like, then he goes, why not? And I was like, oh no, because I'm just gonna pay for my thing, you could just pay for your thing. And then he was like, I just don't understand why you can't. I'm like, oh my God, we're right here. And I literally turned to him and I said, I don't have that much money. I said this to him in front of everyone. I was like, so I would like to pay for my thing,
right?
And you can just pay for your own thing, which is like, he had credit cards and debit cards. I was like, just pay for your own thing. Why are we doing this roundabout of like, I pay for it and then you Venmo me? Why? Just, you're right here, just pay for it, you know? And he just, he's someone who just he didn't get that. And he was like, oh, okay. And I was like, oh my God, pick up on the hint, you know?
Yeah.
It's so wild, and it makes me feel so bad. It's like, it's funny for me to make fun of my grandma, like saving twisty ties or only shopping at Ross. But then to watch her have her own internal, like, well, I can't buy this soda. And it's like, a soda's $1.25. Like, you definitely have more than $1.25 coming in from social services, or like Social Security. But yeah, it's just been hard to watch, to like hear the way that she talks about, things differently. Like, she loves to go shopping. Yeah. She loves a Nordstrom rack. Yeah. And like, we'll still go and touch everything, but, but it is just different. And I mean, my mom like really very much had a hard time, I think, just because of where she is in her life, where it's like young enough to try and get it together, or, she is, to get it together one more time before you're like, now I need to retire. Now I need to be done.
Or like, I'm so old. Like,
but old enough that you're exhausted.
Exactly.
Exhausted. And my mom works her ass off. Like, I don't know how I'm her daughter, because she works so hard and I feel so lazy by comparison. I'm like, I am inspired by her all the time, but it makes me feel awful because I can't imagine being in her position at all. And
is she just kind of like in turbo drive in terms of work now?
Oh, totally. It's obsessive. It's like she's doing fine for herself right now, but it's hard because it's just so survival mode. And so it gets to a point where you're like, okay, I'm making progress. And that progress where you're like, okay, I'm at the top of the wheel, I'm making progress. The bottom falls out. Right. Because you go, well, why am I making this progress? I have nothing left. What am I going to do? It was very like, am I going to end up in a tent on the side of the 10? Right. And I was like, do you want to be on the 405 instead? Like, we can put you. That's a great job. We can put you wherever you want. Perfect, yeah. But it's also that thing when you're in crisis, you catastrophize. Sure, so it's like, okay, mom, you're not going to go from living in Marina Del Rey to living in a tent. Like,
also, literally everyone's fear. Everybody always says, am I going to be homeless?
Yeah.
Like, that's the
Yeah.
baseline for everybody.
It's a very scary thing.
Totally. And it's totally valid when it's like
Right.
your money is gone.
Yeah.
Your money is gone.
Yeah.
Luckily, I have a great 2-bedroom.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really hard to have to just, I'm 28, like to have to not even parent in this way, because it is full on crisis, but just to have to be there for my mom in this way that I don't understand at all.
Yeah.
I don't know how to soothe her. I don't know how to comfort her.
Yeah.
It's betrayal. It's tragedy. It's this like really deep loss.
Right.
That's so hard to cope with.
Because this also extends farther than your depth. Like this goes back from before you were even born, her friendship with this person.
A person
Yes.
you think you know.
So,
Betrays you so much. Yeah.
The good thing, I think, is that she has been kind of looking into what happens when you're part of a Ponzi scheme and understanding how often it does happen.
Yeah,
These
it's
happen a lot on smaller scales.
And
but
larger.
Larger. Yeah, they do happen. So, it's like, okay, well, that's satisfying, but it's still like there's no... there's nothing to recoup for her. Like,
right. It's just trying to heal and like going.
Exactly. Yeah. So a court date gets set for Carol to be charged. What's the word for that? I feel like
it's
arraignment.
immediate. That's when they tell you what you're charged with. Yeah.
So then that gets pushed.
Okay. Even more.
Yes.
Okay. So you're like never. Yes. There's never any like.
Exactly. So it just feels like it gets pushed for another 3 months, and my mom at this point is like, I just need an answer. I just need to know, because I want to be done being in limbo. It's been 2.5 years now. I just, I want to see the look in her eyes.
Right.
I want to, it's pure rage.
Yeah.
Which I totally understand.
Also cycles of grief. Yeah. Cause it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
She wanted to see the look in her eyes when she was charged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we all did.
Yeah.
You would have loved it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm totally that.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was great. So in September 2019.
This is months ago.
Yeah. I go to the Department of Justice in downtown LA, beautiful building, and we sit in this courtroom and listen to what the judge has to say, and a couple people give victim testimonies, even though it's like it's already been decided. We're just kind of reading through the evidence that the judge has. People can say a couple more things that they want. If they want. I think my mom submitted a video as a witness testimony of my grandma.
Now, can I ask really quick, has Carol been in prison in the interim time before this?
Or? I don't think so.
Okay.
She probably posted bail because somehow she had money for that.
Right.
Or took it out. You take out a loan for
right. that. So we're there. I listened to a couple other people give their victim testimonies, and it's all people who were close friends of Carol's.
That's the craziest
It's all
part.
people who were close friends of Carol's. Yeah. So what's really crazy, and I think for me where the story really comes together, as someone who, yes, was a part of it, but was still an outsider and not understanding, sitting in the courtroom was just really eye-opening. All of these people who, said, I've known Carol since high school. Carol and I met after I got in this life-threatening car accident. It's all these people who just happened to be around her. It doesn't seem like she went after anyone in particular, but she manipulated everyone close to her. Yeah. So in total, she Ponzi schemed like $47 million from a total of 50 people.
Oh my God.
And these were all people who knew her. Some people were like, oh, I'm a friend of this person who just also suggested I invest $100,000 with her.
Right. Yeah.
And other people were like the people who own that franchise who invested $12 million. Right. Or one guy gave a testimony that was truly heartbreaking, where he said that, Carol knew his mom for 30 years. His mom also survived the Depression. Carol helped her buy a house. And then in turn, that mom was able to help all of her kids buy homes. And once the return stopped going to his mom, all the kids had to sell their homes. The mom had to sell her home so they could afford to put her into an assisted living. She got sick being in the assisted living, went to the
germy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's full of
and the stress of moving. Yeah.
Well, and the stress of
everybody has to sell everything for
everybody has to sell everything. All the money I've worked for is gone. She's in the hospital with a cough. The doctor says she'll be out the next day. 3 days later, she died. That's how he ended his, it's like, that's how he ended his testimony, which is like, that's literally how this woman's life ended. Yes.
Yeah, because you're taking someone already with a low immune system, high stress,
Totally.
going through emotional turmoil, and then putting them into a germ-filled. I mean, those assisted livings are disgusting,
Bad.
and a lot of times they do mistreat them, even if they paid for a nice one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's why so Bubby still lives at home, and I know if she did not live at home, she would be dead by now.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Like, what is it? They can get like staph that kills elderly.
Oh, yeah.
All
What is
sorts of
it?
stuff,
There's
yeah.
another one with an M. MRSA.
MRSA, yeah.
Ugh.
And Bubby already had shingles. You know, it's like,
Wow.
that's the other thing is that talking to Bubby is like, at 100 years old, she can count on two hands the amount of time she's almost died, like from childbirth into, being a old lady.
Right.
And it's just, with this kind of stress, I don't know how she's been able to manage it because, anybody else would die because it is so traumatic.
Yeah, for an old person.
For an old person.
Yeah, especially, yeah.
But so in listening to everyone's victim testimonies, it's a lot of people saying, I was vulnerable. I was a close friend of Carol's. One woman got in this life-threatening car accident I had mentioned. She won a settlement that would have taken care of her throughout the rest of her life. So it was like, she's in the courtroom saying, it's a miracle I can walk today. The money that I had gotten would have helped me as I got older and as my ailment started to
Affect you more.
affect her more. And she said, I don't have that money anymore because I gave it to Carol. All of it to Carol. All these people saying they gave all this money to her, and it was so interesting because the way in which everyone expressed their pain was like listening to survivors of abusive relationships who say they felt manipulated and gaslit and taken advantage of. And because it is.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was just awful. And we're all just sitting in this room like, none of us are seeing any of that again. Even people who were granted returns, right? Or
because they have to they took Carol's estate, what she did own, and then they have to
right. They're gonna liquidate that.
Right.
The judge called out different families and what they would be receiving. My family's name did not get called. But even for those who said, okay, you're going to get $100,000 back. You're going to get, I think one number was up to $12 million back. It's like Carol doesn't have that money though.
Oh yeah. It's like, that's true. It's like they legally say she owes you, but she's never going to pay it.
Yeah.
Right. She doesn't have it.
She legally has to be making payments toward all of these people that she owes at $25 a month. Yeah. So at what rate?
Yeah.
That's the minimum that she can pay these people back month by month.
It's like you're never gonna get it.
Yeah,
no, never.
It's gone.
So
in the court. Oh yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Your family's name was not called.
Right. And I don't know if that's because of where the investigation started, like the year in which the investigation started. Okay. If Bubby and my mom had started investing with her such a long time ago, that there just are no records. So I don't know.
Yeah. Or it's also like proportional. Like if the McDonald's people put in 20 million, then they'll get proportional, like of the settlement, they'll get that back. Like who knows?
Right.
But yeah, so you guys weren't even involved in, or you weren't even included in the basic reparations or whatever.
Yeah.
So you will get nothing. Your family's going to get nothing back.
Nothing.
Lost.
I think what's crazy is that because Carol forged invoices.
Sorry, guys.
Should we
wait till it goes over and then repeat it? Yeah, sorry.
We're holding for copter.
Yeah. Okay, camera one, go ahead. Okay, sorry.
So because Carol forged invoices to all of these people, to someone like my mom.
Oh, they were forged.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, of course.
Sense, yeah.
But that's another part of the unraveling that you have to do in your brain is like, no, but I had all of this money. My mom is like, no, I had all of this money. I had all of this ready for my retirement. I had all of this ready for when you wanted to get married. I had all of this ready for when your inheritance. But the reality of it is, as soon as my mom gave Carol any money, or as soon as Bubby gave Carol any money, it was gone. There was no there was no investment.
So
none of it was
real.
You
never made money on your money. Any invoice that you looked at was a lie.
Was a fake. So basically, every time there was money being shelled out, it was like Carol was just, did they talk about what she was spending it on?
Okay, so this is what I looked up because I was quite interested, and I think let me tell you about the downside of running a Ponzi scheme is that most of the money that you're bringing back in is being given back to people who you quote unquote owe on their investment.
So that the Ponzi scheme doesn't unravel yet.
Exactly.
Right.
So what I read in, I think it's like the official DOJ website, was that she used it to pay off credit cards, set up trust funds for her sons.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I think she bought a house in Oregon, so I guess part of the money was used for that. But that's it, you know?
She was honestly very quickly you get yourself into such a like hole that it's like everything is just maintaining everything else.
Right.
You know,
right.
I would think.
Are they going to liquidate those trust funds and put them back into the pot?
I don't know.
That house?
I don't know. So what's really fucked up, if I may say, is Carol got to read out her own statement before she was officially sentenced.
Oh, what did she look like in there? By the way, like, what was the vibe? Like, were people just like...
Oh, there was a woman
Did she look
sitting
at
in front of
people?
me. No, she didn't make eye contact with anyone. She just kind of sat with her head down, looking at her papers. She cried while she spoke, of course. There was a woman sitting in front of me who... She was like a friend of someone who just got told to, invest with this woman. And the woman was like hunched over the rows in the courtroom going, yeah, you want to smile at us? That's okay. Like she was calling out, like it was like she was narrating a baseball game,
Wow.
and she's like, okay, you're going to cry. All right. Yeah, you're going to cry. And I could, she's saying it to no one, but I can hear her. I think that was the funniest part, is that it was like, we all want to yell at her so badly.
Right.
We all want to, like ask her, how could you do this?
Yeah.
So Carol reads out her statement, which is like, I humbly apologize for everyone I've hurt.
Did she download it off of Google templates, like straight up?
She's like, I apologies.
Yeah.
What?
It's just Siri.
For
into the
name
microphone.
Yeah.
Carol apologizes. It's just...
She says, I humbly apologize for everyone I've hurt. I know I've damaged a lot of relationships.
Lives.
Yeah. I can't really remember what else she says because it was so unimpressive, but what she does say is that I know everyone in this room can overcome any hurdle that's put in their way.
Fuck
Oh,
you.
Yeah.
Fuck
God.
off.
Which is so insane because it's like, yeah, these people probably could have, but you got out with your shitty hammer and nails and you were like, let me just make this one for you. Like, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
You just heard that someone who was your friend died because of the pain that you caused.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, she's not sorry. You can't keep doing this
Yeah.
to
Right.
this many people and be like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you deliberately kept doing this for decades.
Yeah, decades. Yeah,
and you know what, Jonathan, you're gonna be okay. I just
Yeah.
know you are because you're strong.
right.
It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's
Crazy.
If she was a good person and let's say she started it off thinking that she was such a hot investor and then she realized, oh my God, I like fucked up with their money. If she was a good person, she would have gotten that money back and
Totally.
never have told them and would have been like, I'm never doing that again. I was
Sure.
such a fucking
Yeah,
idiot.
or cut
and
your
it's
losses and-
she made
Yeah.
enough money as a CPA.
Right.
Like,
She
babe,
did-
you
this is
had
like
a
her side
job.
hustle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was so insane. And then I think, to me, the most frustrating part when I think about like running a Ponzi scheme is that when you're like, oh, look at all this money in my account. And you're like, no, I have to give it away to people actually. Like you're not even getting
That's what I'm saying.
enough from
you're
it.
just keeping everything floating.
Yeah.
You're not even like embezzling a ton or something.
Right.
As far as we know, though, because it is quite possible that she did offshore accounts.
I have
Yes.
heard that
But
people
there's-
who run Ponzi schemes will squirrel their money away
I mean,
somewhere. So
I would imagine that they have to, but it
Yeah.
is true. But then they can't fake money to give back to their investors. So like,
Right.
who knows? But
Right. Yeah.
Wow, so Carol could potentially have like a ton of money in like a Swedish bank account.
I don't know about a ton because I do know that she was giving money back to people until
Right.
she couldn't. So I do think that she's mostly out. I
Right.
think that she's mostly out of money, which is why funds
Right.
stopped to that other elderly woman who passed, my grandma. I have to assume a handful of other people in that room. Additionally, she said that it was unfortunate that there was a receiver involved in the case. So the person who was kind of collecting all the info, because that person cost like $125 an hour to work on this case. So in the end, he ended up getting paid over $100,000 to work on this case. And Carol goes, I really didn't want that because that could have been money that went back to everyone here who was affected. And it's like, is that $100K going to make a dent in the $47 million that you stole from people? And that's what
my God.
That's the cross that you want to die on.
Oh my God.
It was so
She's
wild.
crazy, but legit, she's like sociopath.
Oh, she's
totally.
definitely, because also she has something in common with like people who like abuse and kill. Mm-hmm. A lot of times they start or continue with people in their lives that they know.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Whether it is an acquaintance or someone really close. When there's a murder or there's abuse, they always look at the people closest to you, and then they go outward from there.
Right.
Strangers are the last people they look because it's so arbitrary. It's like, okay, well, no, we have to look at the social ring and keep going out and out until we find our perpetrator.
And the thing about Carol is that she's so unassuming. Do you know what I mean? Like, as a person, as a human being, if you met her, you would never go, she will one day run a Ponzi scheme.
Right.
She's just quite plain.
Yeah.
And very like keeps to herself. She's not flamboyant. It's like to me, it just reinforces like you never know someone.
Yeah.
You never know someone. And it's so hard because in a situation like this where you want to go, okay, what's the lesson to learn to never do it again? Never let it happen again. Don't trust your friends.
Right.
It's like,
because there were no signs. So how would you know?
There were no, there were no signs.
Yeah.
Well,
there were no major signs. I will say in hindsight, it's like,
of course,
now there are signs coming out,
right.
Where it's like Carol once went to Bubby and said when she was pregnant. So this must have also been 20 years ago and said, can I get a loan from you? Mm-hmm. And Bubby without a beat went, sure.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Because Bubby, my sweet, trusting, righteous Bubby goes, this woman's pregnant. I'm not going to, who am I to say no to her? She's my friend.
Yeah.
And then there were other times where, where my sister went to rent an apartment and, they needed to look at like all her bank accounts or whatever. And the leasing manager said, I've never seen a statement like this, a bank statement like this.
Because they were fake.
But my sister also had never seen it. And when, it can't, nothing can be wrong with this. This is like our family CPA. Like she's been handling our money for years.
Okay. So they used Carol. Yeah. Like, Carol sent a bank statement.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Things like that, so things like that come up where you're like, well, that was a sign, but why would you think, in the moment you don't.
Yeah.
In the moment you don't, because we're all programmed to be like, people are good and we just have to see that in everyone, right? Like otherwise it collapses.
But also, people that you've grown up with and close to you,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So she reads her statement.
Yeah. So
were people in the room? Was anyone like literally like, fuck you? Like, or people, you're not really allowed to talk.
You're not really allowed to talk, but I could tell that everyone was like dying to say something.
Yeah.
So she reads her statement. She gets sentenced to 7 years.
What?
7 years. So in any sentencing, a judge will read out something which is like, you need to receive the number of years per actions taken, like
there's like a formula
by
for
the law,
it.
right? Like there's certain points that are adjusted for like, okay, you've committed this crime, that's X amount of points, but it didn't exceed this, so that's minus a point. But it didn't, add this, so it's plus a point. So something like that. And she made sure to mention something that it's like the punishment equals the crime committed, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like emotionally, we want you in jail forever. Mm-hmm. But by the law, you're only going to receive X amount of years.
But she ruined people's lives forever, meaning you guys won't ever see that money.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. It feels so unfair.
Yeah.
It just feels so, and it is.
And not to mention, let's be real, like she's a middle-aged white woman.
Yeah.
And probably was trying to look all pitiful. So you're like,
how
can you send like a soccer mom to jail or whatever bullshit,
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is, I'm sure, but also it is true that like these financial crime, it is a different kind of level. Like,
right.
So,
Madoff got 99 years, right?
Yeah.
Because he did it on an even bigger scale. But $47 million total.
Yeah. It's a lot.
So crazy.
It's a lot.
I thought my credit card debt was that.
And she needed all that to pay hers off. So, you know. I mean, it was.
How bad could her credit card? She's like, I have $50,000 in credit card debt. Better do 47.
Yeah.
Like,
Just to be safe.
Obviously, numbers were not her forte. She just added too many zeros. So she only got like 7 years, and I think now she's like in the system, and I think now that she's in, she's only going to end up doing 5 because of like good behavior and whatever else.
And she's in probably white collar.
Oh yeah,
like women's prison.
Also, one thing you told me, none of her family showed up.
None of her family was there. Yeah, which was, I think, smart on their part, because they probably would have.
They're so humiliated.
Heard nasty words from me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so crazy how much, like, me personally, I just want to be physical, right? Like, I want to destroy this woman.
Yeah.
Right.
Who has caused so much harm to my family. Yeah. I want to yell at her. If her sons were there, I would have gone at them.
Yeah.
But then there you are at the Department of Justice in downtown LA, and you're like, there's literally cops everywhere. You know, it's like, I can't, I could not, and not that I would.
Yeah.
But you also just want to be like, to her sons, like, what do you guys think?
Right.
How do you feel about your trust fund? Or how do you feel about your inheritance now?
Right.
You know, or like, are you ashamed?
Yeah. I mean, obviously they were, like, and her husband wasn't even there.
No.
So.
No.
Wow.
Yeah. I think it's her boyfriend. I don't know. Either way, they had broken up at some point through all of this. I can't.
So what does this whole journey, this whole experience give you now, taking away in your life, how you view friendships, how you view money, how you view family? What have you taken away? Have you been able to process that? Trust
no bitch. That's all that I can feel.
Te dije? Yeah. Okay, have I not told you?
You tell me that all the time, and I'm like,
trust no one.
Trust no
bitch. And what
I
say is sharpen your emotional intelligence. And also, I secretly trust
Which
no
I
one.
hate when she says
yeah,
that.
Yeah, no, that's not a good response.
But
I'll go to therapy, but that's a separate thing.
Sure. I mean, it really is hard. And like this was 2 years in the making, right? This was deceit and betrayal 2 years in the making of like, we're aware of it, on top of 30 years of friendship from my mom and my grandma. Yeah. So I don't, it's like, I don't know what the lesson is there. Don't invest with someone who's not, get people's physical certifications, only invest through the L investing app, like, go to a bank or, something. I don't know, it's been so hard on my family. Like, we've always been there for each other. And I don't know that things have like needed to step up in a more major way than we already have, because we are quite good about being there for each other. But I just don't know. I don't think that I can say, honestly, I don't know what the repercussions will look like until Bubby passes or until Bubby reaches 105 and we're going, okay, what else can we sell to pay for you? Yeah. Or when my mom starts to hit an age where she's ready to retire and I go, okay, how can I help you live? Yeah. And I think for my mom, it's really hard because the way in which we've taken care of Bubby, my mom sees that and goes, I don't want my daughters to do that. I want them to be able to have their independence because she's been able to have her independence. And I think that's really hard for her. Whereas I'm like, you're my mom. Of course, I'll take care of you. She just sees how hard it is for all of us to take care of Bubby.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the hardest part, is that I just don't know yet. And the best that I can do now is just like continue to save what I can, where I can. Continue to shop at Marshall's.
I mean, we love a deal.
Yeah,
so
we
really
love a deal.
They have well-priced bath salts.
Yeah. I also want to say, earlier I said sharpen your emotional intelligence, but that I did not want that to imply that you guys should have known, because you had no idea. There were no signs. Like,
what you were saying is that I'm stupid.
No, of course. That's not what that meant. I could tell that was fully directed at Jonathan.
Right.
I felt
in which we both did not agree with.
Yeah. But that's one of the hard things, is that you want to look for the signs and you want to go, I should have known.
That's the frustrating thing, because you're like, how do I prevent this going forward? But if you didn't know, that's almost harder than like, oh, I shouldn't have left my car door unlocked or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, right now, TBD.
And you know what I say? The solution Mary Wealth.
As
Very
always.
wealthy. But also, what you guys can do is catch Rachel Friedland's stand-up because she's doing such original, such unique bits about this, about her family, about her bubby. I mean, it's all tying together into this thing. I'm seeing it slowly tying into this.
We can't wait for the one-woman show.
Yes, it's tying into like a full stand-up hour.
Yeah.
That is very unique. I mean, there's going to be no one who has these types of stories that's doing stand-up like this. Like, I'm very excited to see where you're taking this.
Yeah.
I think you should talk about Tinder more on stage, but
okay, I'll try. I'll get my grandma on there and get her hot take. Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it is hard, but it is, moments like those where you're like, well, we have this crazy story. There's nothing physically that I can do. Like, I can't go become a doctor now. I'm too stupid already. Like that ship has sailed. So I guess this is the next best thing. Yeah, I mean, we do have a GoFundMe set up for her, if I may say.
No, and I was about to say, and please, there is a GoFundMe if you want to donate to Bubby.
Yeah, and Zane. It's in my Instagram bio, so we've left that there.
And
or
what's
if
your
you,
handle?
Rachel Friedland, full name.
Rachel spelled Rachele, or as we like to say, Rochelle.
Yeah. Or if anyone wants to come have dinner with her, that equally takes her mind off things because she loves to flirt. She loves to flirt. It's stuff like that like keeps her going. Because at 99, she's like, I'm pretty done. She wakes up. She told me last Sunday, she goes, I wake up and I go, all right, I'm still here. What's happening today? Like, she's just like, what's the gossip? So, somehow she's managed to keep a pretty positive outlook, and I think it's that she'll be done soon. So
But we do love Bubby.
We do love Bubby. Yeah.
Send love and light.
And until then, please come take some of her saran wrap out of the garage.
She
has so much.
All right. Well, Rach, thank you so much for sharing your story. We love you with all of our hearts.
I love you guys. Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Living